Hey folks, Alan Manick, the Hot Rod Hippie here. Today we're talking about this hammer and dolly set from Harbor Freight Tools for auto body use. So, I have a lot of people ask me, as far as a professional working on sheet metal, working on cars, what do I think of these more affordable options for hammers and dollies? So I wanted to let you know my professional opinion and my personal opinion of this set. Of course, this is a 7-piece hammer and dolly set from Harbor Freight Tools, and of course it's made in China, being as it's Harbor Freight. You get 3 hammers and you get 4 dollies in this set. The 3 hammers are all 3 flat-faced hammers with a different design on the other end. This one here has a pick design in the flat face. You have a chisel design in a flat face, and then you also have a waffle shrinking hammer with a square flat face on the other side. As far as the dollies are concerned, you've got a heel dolly, a utility dolly, a comma dolly or a wedge dolly, and then you have this dolly that I would call more of an all-around general utility dolly. It's kind of an I-beam shape. So those are the dollies you get in this set. So let's break down the finer points of the hammers. All 3 hammers have a flat face on one side and a different design on the other. The flat face is a true flat face. It is flat. Stick a level of straight edge across there and it will be a flat surface. Now, that's not actually what you want on a standard hammer. My typical flat-faced hammers from, say, Snap-on or Martin Tools, well, they actually have about a 12-inch radius to that face. The idea there is, think of driving a nail into a piece of wood. You're driving that nail in, and you reach the end, you sink it with the last hit. Maybe you leave an impression of the hammerhead on that wood. If you hit it perfectly square, you'll have a round impression. But if you hit it just a little off square, you'll have, say, a half moon, an eyebrow in that wood. That's exactly the same thing you need to think about happening when you're hammering on sheet metal. With a true flat face, as you're hammering on that metal, you need to be square. You need to be contacting that right dead on. If you're not, well then you're going to create eyebrows. You're going to have that edge biting into that metal in ways that you're not trying to make happen, which is actually going to create stretch in the metal. There's a whole lot to that. But basically, you've now taken 1 step forward and 2 steps back. You've damaged the metal while trying to repair the metal. A higher quality flat face hammer like the Snap-on one with that 12-inch radius is a lot more forgiving. As you're striking that metal, you don't have to hit 100% square because of that radius on that face, you can contact it a little bit all over that face without worrying about digging the edge in. Also, if you're working with a dent, it's a concave shape. So with this design, you have a little bit of forgiveness for getting down into that concave without having the edges bite in. With a true flat face like these hammers have, you have none of that. The edge is going to hit that concave shape on the outside and leave impressions. You don't have any of that to get down into that shape like you want. Another problem here with these hammers is the fact that, well, you've got 3 flat faces on there. You do not have a radiused face on any of these. And that's really not such a good thing. That means if you're trying to work in a reverse curve, in a dished area, you don't have a hammer to meet that need. It makes no sense that this set has 3 hammers and all 3 have flat faces. That serves no purpose. There's no reason to have 2 flat-faced 1 9/16 heads hammers in here. We should also talk about the other end of the hammers. This pick hammer has a very sharp pointed pick here. That's for knocking up tiny little areas, come up behind the panel and knock up the small areas, or maybe just spot knocking down things. But it's really too sharp. It's a very pointy tip on here. So you're going to damage the metal quite a bit trying to knock up that point. I don't really use a pick hammer in that regard. I use my bullseye pick or some other means to knock out those small areas because these picks are too aggressive on the higher quality hammers. And this one is significantly more aggressive than the Snap-on one that I usually use. However, this does have quite a bit of meat to it, so you can go ahead and knock this down and make it a lot more usable with just a little bit of grinding and sanding. As far as the chisel end is concerned, well, the radius on there is just too blunt. They went the other way with this one. So if you're trying to get into a corner and crisp up an edge or crisp into a corner of a flange, this thing is too fat. It's not going to get in there the way you need it to. You need this to become more of a point for that use. And also the edge is inconsistent. It's like somebody went to a belt sander at an angle and started grinding away because it's kind of at an upward angle to the one side. It's not quite right. It's inconsistent from one end to the other. So that's going to create some issues if you're trying to strike into that corner. It's going to be biting differently from one side of the hammer to the other. And then finally with the shrinking hammer, it's got the cold shrinking waffle side on one side and this square flat face on the other. That's nice for getting right up to, say, the edge of a flange, tap it with another hammer to flatten something out. So that's not a bad design. I can see why they included that. As far as the waffle side is concerned, I never ever use one of these personally. They scar the metal as much as they do anything, so there are better means for shrinking metal than using a waffle face shrinking hammer, in my opinion. One other thing to note about these is that they all have a stainless steel handle design. They list this as a selling point on the box, but to me it's actually a negative. The reason being, on a body hammer, you're going to be striking something over and over and over and over and over again. You can strike 1,000 times a day, and I'm not exaggerating about that. It's not the same thing as driving a nail in. It's a lot more short, little bursts of hammering, and you feel that in your wrist. You feel that in your hand. At the end of a long day of hammer and dolly work, it beats on you. This is not an energy absorber. This stainless steel, of course, it's going to vibration dampen a little bit, but the wood handles, the fiberglass handles of a higher quality hammer, they're going to absorb a lot more of that vibration. That's not just me speculating. I have used these hammers, I've put them to work, and I can confirm that my suspicions were true. These definitely shock my hand, shock my wrist a lot more than my standard body hammers do. Overall, these hammers do have a fairly nice design. I was pretty impressed with all of this kit as far as the finish is concerned on the face of them. They actually put a fair amount of effort into it. They're fairly consistent. I'm not seeing any dips or bows or weird shapes in the face of them for the most part. So they are fairly usable. The edges on them have pretty harsh chamfers that need to be knocked down and corrected. You need to put more of a radius on those so you're not getting those bite marks. I have a whole video about how to dress up and clean up your body hammers. You can go ahead and check that out to get a little more insight into what you should be doing there. So now let's discuss the dollies. As far as the dollies are concerned, they're just too small. They're significantly smaller than my higher quality ones, so they're not going to have as much surface area for when you're trying to knock up or down a dent, and they also don't have usable surfaces. That's just very strange to me. Say on this heel dolly, I've only got 2 usable surfaces out of the 4 surfaces that are on it. I use every single surface of all my dollies on a regular basis. So this just doesn't make any sense. This outside radius can be very handy for heavier radius pieces. In fact, my Martin Tools one, I welded a post onto it so I could stick it in a vise, and I could use that upper radius for a piece I was shaping the other week. So this one's unusable. I'd have to spend a bunch of time to correct this, sand it, knock this paint off, and make it a usable surface, and that's really disappointing to me. All 4 of these dollies are both undersized and also have those surfaces that are just completely unusable. So it's just that they didn't put nearly enough time into finishing these products or necessarily designing them properly to begin with. Because things like the heel dolly have this divot on the backside, so this surface would never be usable. You could not use it, it just has this big hole in the middle. Now that said, the smaller size could be an advantage once in a while. Every once in a while I do find that my dollies are too big to get into certain areas, so I could see myself using these smaller ones in those places. I have been looking for smaller dollies for that use, so these will be nice to supplement a little bit. Also, they have harsh edges all around these things, so you're going to need to clean them up. You're going to need to radius those so you can use them, and if you get a little off, you're not getting that bite mark in the sides. They're going to take a little time to clean up and get them more usable. So now let's go ahead and demonstrate. Let's talk about using these hammers. I've put them to use a little bit, and I've created some dents, I welded some pieces, and I hammered on them with these. I'll constantly use hammers and dollies to knock welds flat. I'll TIG weld a piece together, it gets a little distorted from the TIG weld, and then I'll smooth it back out with the hammer and dolly. So I tried doing that. I tried putting these hammers to that use. Seemed the most straightforward way to test them. So I got the pick hammer here and I've got the comma dolly. The reason I've got the comma dolly is it's the only one that is even close to a flat surface. None of these dollies in this set have a flat surface to them. There's a bit of a flat one right here where I actually normally wouldn't expect to see one, but I'll use that for now for this flat piece that I'm trying to flatten back out. I got this rested here and I'm going to try and stretch out this TIG weld a little bit. A good quality hammer and dolly should have no problem striking that weld, flattening it out, and making it usable. Now, that was only a really quick test because I've actually already done that on this piece a couple times, testing it out, and I can tell you that I'm just not getting the results I need out of this. I have this piece here, I welded a couple of different stitch welds on it, and then I went ahead and hammered on them with the Harbor Freight tools and then with the snap-on hammers that I use usually. The snap-on ones flatten out the weld beautifully. They did a great job. It'll take very little grinding to sand that down and get it to the point where it's gone, where the weld is no longer visible and the pieces joint. The Harbor Freight one isn't flattening the weld at all. It's just not doing the job. And the only thing I can think is that these just aren't as hard or strong of a hammer as they should be for that use. If you're a beginner and you're welding with a MIG welder, these are simply not going to hammer on the MIG weld. Even the better quality ones I have, I don't like doing that because MIG welds are very brittle, they're very hard. You should try and learn some TIG welding, but as a beginner, I understand that's both a money investment and a time investment to learn. Don't get me wrong, they will knock out a dent. They will get the job done when you're trying to repair some dents, some sheet metal, but they're not applying themselves in all the ways that I need them to on a regular basis. So I actually took these hammers, the Martins, the Snap-ons, and the Harbor Freight, and I got them Rockwell hardness tested at a local machine shop. I was pretty impressed to find that the Maddox hammers were coming in at a 50 on the Rockwell hardness scale versus a 49 on the Martin and a 43 on the Snap-on. So that's actually pretty impressive. It struck me odd that this was actually the hardest because I'm not seeing the results out of it that I expect. It seems like it's a softer hammer. So I reached out to the folks at Martin Tools and asked them for a little information. Why is it that this is the result I'm seeing? According to an engineer over there, what they're saying is that the base material is just not strong enough. You could harden the heck out of any piece of junk material and it'll test hard, but when you put it to real world application use, the softer nature of it, the weaker nature of it is going to shine through. And that's really what I'm seeing here. These better quality hammers are definitely functioning better, and to me that very largely means they're going to last a lot longer. I'm not only not getting the results I want out of this hammer, but I'm already seeing a little bit of scarring on the face of it. That's normal. You're going to need to redress your hammers from time to time. But I've barely used this for any period of time. I've just done some testing for this video, and I'm already looking like in the near future I'm going to have to redress this hammer. That means it's not going to live a long life. So to wrap this up, what do I really think of the 7-piece hammer and dolly set from Harbor Freight? I think if you're a do-it-yourselfer, you're a beginner, you're just starting out, and this is going to be the first set of hammers and dollies you buy, it's an okay set. It'll get you started and teach you a little bit of the basics. You could use this for that one project you have that you need to get done, and it'll get you by. But if you think you want to do this, you think that you want to keep on metal shaping, you want to keep on repairing sheet metal, I'm going to tell you, go ahead and invest in a better quality set. You can get something like a 7-piece set from Martin Tools. It's going to have a wider range of usable tools in there. Yes, it is significantly more at $230, but that's going to be a lot more useful to you than this $37 set from Harbor Freight. It's going to last a lot longer. I've got hammers and dollies that are older than I am because they're quality tools. This set, I truly do not believe from everyday use would last a long period of time at all. I think within a few months they would be pretty well shot and unusable. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. What are you going to use them for? Do you really want to get into this? Do you really want to shape some metal? Do you really want to keep repairing metal for friends? Do you want to get into it professionally? If you do, then I'm going to say invest in yourself, invest in your tools. I know a lot of people say it's a poor craftsman who blames his tools, but I feel like a lot of those folks just never really use really good quality tools to understand that they do help you. Even when you're just learning, a better quality tool can help you learn a lot better. That's my personal opinion, but I feel it to be true because I've invested from quality tools from the beginning for myself, and I think they've grown with me quite a bit. And maybe even for me, I'm probably going to keep this around. I'll use them as sacrifice hammers. If I need a really oddly shaped hammer and I have to cut up one of my more expensive ones, I'll cut up one of these and create the shape that I need out of that. So I'm going to keep them around for that use. Alright folks, I hope you found this video informative. If you did, drop it a like. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you have this set? Do you have one of the older versions of the set? This seems to be a fairly newer one. Or do you have some of the older, higher quality ones? Do you have some really old vintage ones you think are really cool that I should check out? Let me know in the comments down below. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel for more content like this in the near future. Thanks for coming around, folks. Have a good one.